Hey everyone, how do you pour a wood grain soap and get two completely different looks from the same loaf? Well, stick with me and you'll find out. As you may see up on the text part of the video, I forgot to say go again and get the camera rolling. So we missed out on a little bit. All of the info is up in the text. It was a fairly simple little procedure, and all of the products I'm using will also be listed up in the text. So hang out there and watch in slow mode if you need to, or rewind it a couple of times to catch everything I'm using. Um, Today's really an interesting pour. First of all, I am doing another wood grain soap for Father's Day again. And this gives you a couple of different options of ways to do wood grain looks. And I'm sure there's more, but I'm not going to do more than this one. This is it for now, for this year. So hang out and let's see what we do to get two looks out of the same soap. I have shown you this with a couple of other swirl soaps, and this is very similar. But this one is specifically chosen to look like wood. And I really feel like I end up with two completely different looking soaps that both look like different types of wood. And I hope you'll agree with me by the time we end up with it, with photos and with the final product at the end. It's really not a difficult pour. So give it a try. I mean, it's not hard. It's a little bit of timing. So you want to, as I've mentioned with every soap I've ever done pretty much, you want to know what is your soap's melting point, and you want to know to keep track of your soap's temperatures at all times. So in most melt and pour swirl type soaps, you want to keep your temperatures under the melting point, significantly under. You kind of ride this little line, at least for this pour. You ride the line between fully melted, you want it to be melted, and starting to get goopy. And when it starts to get goopy, don't panic and keep pouring as long as it's fluid enough to actually pour. And you can always pop it back in the microwave to reheat. I do that in this video, but you may not notice. I'll try to point it out when I do it because I cut out the waiting time. You don't want to sit there while my microwave goes. So I'm going to try to point that out. I want you to notice that I am using cling wrap over the top of my pictures to kind of gain a little bit more control over how fast these soaps cool. You want to take them, you do want to melt them thoroughly in the first place and take them to above the melting point. My melting point is between 120 and 125, according to my website. And I will say not my website, the website where I got my soaps, which is Wholesale Supplies Plus. And no, I am not sponsored by them. I just love their soap bases. The one you see me putting into the little pitcher now is a detergent-free soap base, which means the melting point is going to be closer to the 120. They kind of give you a range for all of their soaps. And the detergent-free ones tend to melt at a lower temperature than the others, and especially the ones that have milk or the whiter, the titanium dioxide, they tend to melt a little quicker, which means that melting point is lower. And the other ones you see is the shaving base, so that's a little bit on the higher end, more like 125, maybe a little bit less than that. But I take it above. I believe the larger pitcher, which is the brown, that's the one that I said I weighed out 30 ounces and then 20. I wanted 50 ounces total of the shaving base. So I divided it that way because I wanted more of the brown in the picture, in the swirl. I wanted that to be my main color. So that's about 30 ounces. That's a 32 ounce pitcher. So it's a little bit less than that. And I did weigh it, and then I think I stole a little from the 20 ounces and put it in. So it might be a little bit more than that, but not by much, or it'd be overflowing. So even though it's by weight and not volume, so it's going to be less by weight, it's going to be less. It's not going to be full because the soap is a bit heavier than water, which is usually how they measure the volume. So anyway, so I'm covering them to keep them kind of low, but while they're cooling, I'm stirring, I'm adding my fragrance oil. I'm kind of keeping track of all that. And it really is, this is the most difficult part of this soap, is not only keeping track of the temperatures, but, and spilling soap all over your hand, um, but keeping them all warm at the same time and fluid. And you can do it. You just kind of, especially when you have different amounts like this, once you get the larger one melted, that's obviously because it's larger and there's more in there. It's going to stay warm for longer. So is the detergent free one. So typically you will find the one I used, the silver in the Interstellar, and I left it a little bit transparent, translucent on purpose, and I really feel like that makes a difference in a swirl, but particularly in a wood grain. Well, really any swirl. Have one of them translucent and have one of them really saturated. Um, I really like to have one that isn't sparkly mica. So that's why the bentonite clay was for the shaving soap, because it's great for shaving soap. It adds slip. It is and helps the foam lather, and it's slightly exfoliating. You see me adding a little bit more activated charcoal in there because I wanted that to be a gray. I wanted to make it a little darker than that, but I didn't because I was afraid I'd be adding too much glycerin, as if you noticed in the beginning, that is what I dispersed my clay into, was glycerin. So I didn't, it's such a small amount I'm using here. I didn't want to overdo the glycerin. So I just kind of kept it on the low side, even if it meant the gray was a little bit lighter. Could have used a clear, but I really wanted that argan oil. Again, it's a shaving soap. Argan oil is known to be wonderful on uh, hair and facial hair and for shaving. So I kind of went with that. Um, that one will stay open quite long because it is the detergent free and because I've added the glycerin to it as well. Those tend to set up a little slower, and with the added clay, all of those work together to make it stay open a little longer. But I do end up reheating it once, maybe twice by the end of it, because I do a little additional pour and do a little extra bonus soap. Of course, if I have extra and I have time, I always try to, or at least lately, I've been trying to show you what types of things I might do with those leftovers. And it was kind of a fun one this time. But it actually an additional wood grain pour, but different. You'll see in the end, it doesn't end up looking quite like wood to me, but it does look like a cool soap. So the pour is going to start. And once you start with these types of pours, this is kind of, um, I kind of call it a freestyle pour. I'm just pouring very small amounts. And because I'm going for a wood grain, I'm trying to keep the action up and down the length of this mold. By the way, this mold is new for me. It is a bit larger than my typical, the purple ones I use. It uh, holds more like maybe 55 ounces. I'm kind of guessing because I ended up with leftovers. I used a total of about 62, I think. You can go back and add up what I had, but I think it was 62 is the amount I had out there. And I was able to make an additional small soap after. So maybe more like 58. I'd say somewhere between 56 and 58 ounces is what this mold will hold. It's very similar dimensions. It's just longer. So you'd get a couple of extra slices out of it if you are slicing it right down the money, like you usually do with an Uncle Andy's or a soap cutter of some kind. We do some different cutting here, though, so not to spoil it too much, but I the slices I get are not from just from using the Uncle Andy's. We do some extra steps. I am just alternating colors here, and I'm just going up and down. You might notice that the dark brown and the light silver are both a little bit on the lumpy side here. I let the skin form on the top, and then I kind of stir it in and let it be a little lumpy on purpose. Lumps in a small lumps in a soap like this just add dimension, and I was hoping to add a little bit, maybe the look of a knot or so. I don't know that it really looks like knots, but it does add a little extra dimension and bump here and there. It just looks like part of the swirl. So whether you want to or you don't, that's up to you. But it kind of is going to get clumpy as you pour anyway. And it certainly isn't going to hurt anything unless you let a great big hunk flop in, and then you'll just get a great big lump of that color. There is one point in here where it starts to try to put a big lump in, and I hold it back. I'm hoping you can catch that in there, but that's all you have to do is hold it back with your little spatula. And then the next chance you have, you go and you just remelt a little. You don't have to remelt it back to the point it was when it needed to be fully melted. You just need to get it warm again. For the larger pitcher, I put it in about 10 to 15 second increments when I remelted. I think I did 15 seconds and then 10 after that, and that was enough to get it back to pourable. And smaller amounts of time with this pitcher here, I think I just did 1 10-second increment. It got really solid at one point, so I may have done 2 10-second increments, and then I think just 1 10 seconds for the clay one, the darker gray that has the bentonite clay in it. These obviously you can do whatever colors you want. You could do, instead of the silver, you could have done a gold, would look really nice, or a copper. I was kind of going for the look of an old plank, a really old weathered board. And I kind of end up with that with one of them. The other one, I was trying for something else, and I really feel like I accomplished it. But, and we'll talk about it more when you see the cut. But that's one of the reasons I kind of went with the colors I went. I could have gone with a cooler brown and made it further toward the gray, because wood tends to gray a bit when it's been out in the sun and gets bleached and weathered. But I wanted some brown as a part of it, so I didn't go fully gray with it. And I like the way it turned out. I wanted some brown in there, and I think it looks really pretty together when you see the whole complete picture. You'll notice with a pour like this, I want to point out that you really need to be mindful of the corners and the edges. And, a lot of the pours are up and down around-ish the middle, but I always am going like right there. I'm going for that corner. And that's because as it's setting up, because you're pouring so cool, as it's setting up, it can stick to the sides in an odd way, like it's setting up too soon on the edges. It's always going to set up on the edges first. So you want to be mindful of that as you're doing your pours. And I try to always watch. And when you see me do this, now there, I'm kind of going for the middle there, but you might see me several times, or have already seen me go along the edges. And that's to keep it from just sticking right there and not like kind of solidifying against the wall in a way that isn't incorporating it with the rest of the soap. I hope that made some sense. If it didn't, I'm sorry. I don't know how else to put it, but it doesn't flow. The soap doesn't flow to the edges as much as it's starting to set up. So the stick kind of pulls it away from the edge and helps the center stuff and the part that's still fluid flow out all the way to the edges, so you don't end up with weird sides or weird ends, and it's mostly, a good solid looking soap. So you can get funky holes and stuff if you don't do that. It's not the end of the world, because it is a wood soap. and you might find that there are little nicks and holes and bits that are odd. I definitely am one for an organic look when it comes to my soaps, especially if I'm trying for a semi-realistic look. So I don't always mind it, especially in something like this, if there are little oddities here and there. You're not going to get perfection in a swirl. And if you do, that's just by chance and luck and whatever other special things you might believe. But it's not something you can control for the most part. A swirl, you can control it to some degree, but there's always going to be some surprises. It's just the nature of it. You can't see what's underneath. You can't see how quick it's setting up. You do tend to get a feel for that as you're doing more and more of them. I'm probably going to do some repeats of this type of swirl soon in other colors. If you'd like to take a look at one of my earlier soaps that uses this technique, take a peek at the 4-color Halloween swirl that I did. I will link it at the end. I'm not positive of the name of it, but I think it's a 4-color Halloween swirl, something like that. It's a similar type of pour. I don't cut it in the different ways that I do with this one. I don't end up getting 2 different looks. I end up getting, obviously they're each different because that's what swirls are. No 2 are going to be exactly alike. Sometimes you get mirror images, so you do get, one side that will match another opposite, and you get the little Rorschach tests. But this type of swirl, each one tends to be fairly unique, and even more so if you choose to cut it differently. Okay, so that's the pour. You can see how fast it went. Yes, this is sped up. This is sped up by 2 times. That's typically what I do for my videos, is 2 times sped up, and then I skip little spots like here. I'm remelting again. I did one other time, and I'm sorry I didn't catch it to point it out. It's hard to talk and watch at the same time, especially watching for something specific. But these I remelted pretty much fully this time. I don't think I left any lumps, but part of that's just because there's so little soap left here. The little tiny mold that you see at the side is from Wholesale Supplies. Plus, I'll leave a link to it. It was part of a kit. It has to do with another soap I'm going to be doing, another video I'm going to be doing soon that's an experiment. And we're going to play around with some busting some myths or proving some myths, one or the other. But this mold was part of that kit, and it's really unique. I like it. It's like a mini loaf. I don't fill it all the way in this soap because I'm just trying to use these up, and I end up with 2 very narrow soaps, which I will probably cut in half and get squares out of them. But for now, I cut them into little planks on the video. I also may go back and do some other things I'll talk about at the photos at the end, but I'm just doing the same pour for these. But again, this one is more going for the look that you get on the top because it is so thin. I'm not going to slice it to see you. It's too narrow to do that. To the top is your image. That's what most likely. You might end up with the bottom as your image, or I don't know what you you might do with it, but for me, I wanted the top to be the image on this one. And it's neat. It's setting up as I'm going, of course, and so because it's such small amounts of soap here, I end up with a different look than I planned. I could have gone back and melted a little bit more, just a tiny, but it was such a small amount left here on this gray, on the bentonite clay layer, and it was kind of stringy, and I just sort of left it. I do mess with it a little bit, but it gave it a lot of dimension, which I thought was really cool. And I thought, oh, cool, that'll look like wood. But for some reason, when I went to cut this, I'm trying to do little swirls there for a knot, and it does not happen because I waited too long. Um, and it was just setting up, and I just gave up on that because it wasn't happening. So when you see me unmold this and cut it into 2 pieces, it instantly to me now looks like a fancy chocolate bar and made me want to eat it, except it didn't smell like chocolate. If it smelled like chocolate, I might have had some trouble, but um yeah, that's just what it looks like to me, and I can't, sometimes once you see an image in something, you can't shake it. So that's what this one just is to me in my head. And maybe it'll look a little bit less like that when I cut it in half the second time when I cut it into little squares. Probably just use those for samples. But I eyeballed it because this was kind of I'm not going to say a throwaway because that's not true, but I just had extra because I prefer to overestimate how much soap I need so I don't end up panicking at the last minute to melt an entire bucket of soap as the other is setting up. You're much better having extra soap and you reusing it in some way than you are doing the panic melt. That is just very tricky, and it means sometimes that the soap that you're working on at the time is just going to set up and make it a mess, or at least just make it so that you don't have a continuous look. You see a lot of soaps that end up with kind of a top layer that is very different looking, and sometimes that's why it's just set up too much, and you run out of soap and you have to go melt more, and by then the top is just set up completely, and it's hard. You can't mix it in once it's set up. You can't swirl it at all, or mix it. This mold I thought was really neat. One of the things I liked about it, it unmolded just about as easily as the purple ones do. But the cool thing about it is you can see where it's kind of pulling away from the mold. And that's, to me, I found that very helpful as I'm unmolding it. With the purple one, you're kind of more guessing and kind of going by feel than you are by by seeing it. There's no visual there. But these are slightly translucent, so enough to see the soap through. Not transparent. It's not one of those. I mean, I know you can see that, but sometimes it's harder on the video to tell what's what. So, but it was cool. Anyway, I used my Uncle Andy's here, the famous soap guillotine, and I just do 2. I do off of one end, and then I flip it around. I don't think you see me flip it around. I think I did it off camera and do the other end. That's because it was still a bit soft. And I always want to start with the ends that are a little harder. It lets the other open ends both kind of air out a little and solidify. And I fool around with this, the rest of this loaf a little bit, which also gives it time to solidify. It wasn't, nothing was oozing out of it. Um, I would recommend waiting until it's fully set up, but you're not under the same time constraints as I am for creating videos and getting things done that way. So just let it sit. Loaf molds, just let them sit overnight if you can. I mean, it's always so much easier to unmold and cut and make sure all of the layers are stuck together really well. If you're doing a layered soap, that is something that does make a difference for people who have layers that fall apart. Let it stay in its mold longer. It really does help it, as does cutting it sideways if you're doing horizontal layers. But that is not this soap. So because it's a swirl and everything was added as it was still soft and fluid enough, so it sticks together quite well. What I was doing there was just measuring those bars, measuring to see the thickness of that loaf is 2 bars worth of thickness of a soap. So it's, if I cut that in half the other direction, I'm going to get 2 bars out of it. I hope that makes some sense to you. I think it will as you see me cutting these chunks I'm cutting up. I basically take the rest of this loaf after cutting the first slices off of each end, and I'm cutting them into 3 chunks, which is basically equal to 2 bars, no matter which way you cut it. Well, I won't say no matter which way you cut it, but if you cut it as you would with the Uncle Andy's, or if you turn it and cut it through the middle, which is what I end up doing and how I end up getting two looks. You see, I'm using the bars themselves to be my measuring guide because it worked out so perfectly as far as the thickness goes and the width. It basically gave me 3 of these chunks to then work with and cut in half in various ways. So I'm cutting it in 3 main chunks, and then I because the first 2 I cut are the basic style of what you would cut a swirl. That's usually how you cut a swirl, is how you would with the Uncle Andy's, just straight down from top to bottom, the way it came out of the loaf. That's normal. That's the typical way. So I cut 2 slices off, so I had 2, and then I had 3 chunks. So I did 2 of the 3 chunks the different way, and I believe that's what I'm doing now. Is I turned the middle of the soap facing up and cut down through that. And it gave me a very different look from the others. You'll see it up close and be able to see that not only is the grain direction quite different, but everything looks different. The colors look different. The patterning looks extremely different. And that can be true for just about any swirl you do. The way you cut it does make a difference. And sometimes it's fun just to see what you're going to get. And I've done that a few different times with my smaller loaf mold, but it works out more evenly with this mold to do it this way, because you cut it in half and you get 4 bars out of each way to cut. So you get kind of an equal number if you want to do it. With the other mold, it's not quite as you can cut it in half and get 3 slices out of each. But if you're cutting through the middle, like I did for the ones on the top right, oh no, that's not the top right. Sorry, the left. Then you're getting, you get some odd shaped bars, and it works out to do. Check out my Barbie number 2, my Barbie swirl part 2. I did that and ended up with some odd shapes. I still liked it and loved the soap actually. But these you get 8 very pretty much equal soaps for the most part. Their thickness was a little different on one of them. But that's just my measuring skills. So, you see me doing a little bit of beveling, and I was just kind of playing. This is a beveler. You'll see at the end I bring it up close to the camera. It's got teeth on it. It's a serrated blade, and I still haven't found my favorite tool for beveling, but this one was there, and I thought, you know what? It's a wood grain soap. Let me see what the beveling with the serrated edge looks like, because I kind of feel like it might look a little bit like wood grain. And it does. It's kind of cool. I may go back and bevel more, but I just wanted to try one of each type. So this is what I'm calling a burled look to me. This is more of a swirl. It's more of when you're holding the soap tall ways, the swirl look is, and the grain is kind of going side to side a little bit, but it's not as straight of lines. It's much more swirl like. I'm going to call it burl something, burled walnut. I was thinking of getting really silly and calling it burled ives. I don't know. And I know burl is the type of wood, but I know people also say burled walnut, and you do hear both, even though burl wood is technically correct. I don't always care what's technically correct, but I'm showing these first, the ones that are the swirl, the more of a swirl look. And I kind of save one for later because I bring up the ones that have the serrated beveling last, just to kind of show a difference with those. I think these came out absolutely stunning. I do have some pictures at the end for you. They're basically screenshots of these, but I'm also adding some pictures of the other some other wood grain soaps that I've done, the other style that I did recently, and so you can see that. Now this is the one that I used cutting Uncle Andy's. I am standing it tall ways because I wanted those lines to look like straight up and down. so that we have a wood grain. It looks more like a wood grain soap to me on that way. And this one, I can't unsee it once I saw it, but it looks more like bark. It looks like the bark of a tree. Looks like tree bark, a plank of that. But I'm still going to go with calling it walk the plank because it still is a plank of wood and it definitely looks old and weathered. So that is what I will be going with. Is it a perfect wood grain swirl? No, not really, but it looks really cool. To get the traditional wood grain look that cold process soapers do, you're just not going to do it with Melt and Pour. So that's one of the reasons we look for different ways to do this type of soap. Wood grain pour in cold process soap is very popular. You can get really cool looks from it. And you can do the same with Melt and Pour, either with the chiffon technique or with this freestyle pour technique and cutting it in a unique way. I would not hesitate at all to try doing this type of swirl with other colors. I guess we'll talk about that more in a second. Here's what I want to point out. This is my fancy chocolate bar. Don't eat it. It won't taste good. It's not good for you. But most of all, it will taste terrible. But yeah, it just, to me, that's what I can't unsee it. I do, the straight lines, it does give some really good defined lines that look like wood. If they weren't gray, it'd be a little bit better. I was going in my head, I wanted it darker. So if it were closer to a black, I probably could have used a clear soap. If I was really going for this look, but like I say, this was a pour off. So I'm really happy with the little pour off. I'm going to cut each piece of those in half and get 4 little squares that are going to be either samples or part of a gift basket. I'm not sure, but anyway, they look cool. I'm playing with the angle a little bit so you can see. Sometimes it's harder for the brown to pick up the light, even though in real life you see it quite well. It's kind of a glowy brown that Sexy Stranger. It used to be called Sexy Stranger on a Train, and they've changed it recently to Sexy Stranger. I'm not sure why, but beautiful Mad Mica's brown. There's your serrated edge there. I hope you could pick that up. And there I'm trying to highlight with these 2 that I did, trying to highlight that look so you can see it. Can really see it when the light catches it. It looks quite cool to me, especially considering that it's a wood grain soap. It gives it a grain. It gives it a real grain. I don't do it across the whole thing. I just did the edges as I usually do when I'm beveling. But I like that look, and I'm probably going to go back and do the rest of them that way because I think it looked really cool. And this is the other swirl look, the other cut with the serrated beveled edge. I'm in love with this bar. I think it's just gorgeous, and both sides. Now the other one is just literally the top of the other side. On 2 of those is just the top. And the top swirl, I think, came out really pretty too, so I wasn't unhappy with that. The other 2 have the bottom, which is kind of a plain brown, but not all soaps have 2 sides. Definitely not all artwork has 2 sides, that's for sure. And I'm just switching these up so they can catch the light for you at different angles. The lighting is, of course, always a challenge for me. Here is the swirled look, the burled wood kind of look that was the middle cut, cutting through the middle of the soap. And it's just beautiful. Like I said, you could do this with so many other colors and get beautiful, beautiful results. To me, with a little bit less worry than some of the other swirls, because you're just pouring in layers over and over again. I think it's a really neat look. And so this is the bark. It looks like bark, but I'm going to call it walk the plank. It is the type of swirl that gives you the look of camo. Also, if you turn it the other direction, it looks quite a bit like a camo look. Camouflage, if you don't know what camo is, and but it looks very much like a camouflage soap if you turn it the other way. I like it like this for this one because it looks like tree bark, or at least a plank of some type of wood, and that's more like what I was going for. So keep that in mind if you want to make a camo soap. Do this same swirl. You can even use the same colors for that because it works very well for camo, or you can add a green in there, a dark kind of hunter's green, and you'd have a really lovely camo soap. You just cut it regularly with the Uncle Andy's and then keep it, don't turn it, you can turn a soap whichever way you want, obviously. But for your pictures and stuff, it looks more like a camo soap the other direction, in my opinion. So we're at these are my little pictures. Some of them are from just screenshots. So that's what I ended up with this time. Please give this a try. It is a fun swirl. Here's my other wood technique. I will link both that and my other soaps that have this same type of swirl that don't look like wood because I'm using a different technique. More of the chiffon wood grain technique, and give either one a try or both. They're both fun. I had a lot of fun with this swirl, and I hope you will too. Thank you so much. Bye.